listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So I know we end the podcast with recommendations, and I'm not about to recommend a particular thing right now. However, it does seem like that. But what I want to celebrate, I want to say, be in praise of mediocrity. I feel like I found a Netflix show that is super ordinary, coming in right at a C+. And I feel like now I love this show. I love watching it. And I know it's not great. And I know it's not really bad. I know it's just sliding in there. And I feel like there's been something really comforting. And I'm not going to call it a guilty pleasure because it's not that. I'm not even going to really call it comfort food or whatever, because that's a certain kind of speaks to a part of me. I'm just saying, I think all of us need to have a middling show that we're watching to just fill in the time sometimes.
You know what? I've been kind of feeling that way about restaurants. Like, I wouldn't say mediocre. I would just say fine. I think you get into this thing where it's just like, I want to go to the best place for this,
right?
Or the best place for that. And I feel a little exhaustion from thinking about that every time I want to go out and eat. And there's some pleasure in just like walking down your street, going into a place that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And just sitting down and having a meal. You know,
exactly. It's exactly it.
That might be how I feel like after thinking about, I think we talked about it last week or the week before, but thinking about my childhood love of Roxette and how I still love them. But like, that's kind of how I feel about Roxette. I know they're not great.
Yeah.
But they're fine and they're fun and they'll do the job.
Right? That's what it is. And that's how I feel at the end of a really busy day. And I sit down and I watch The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. It's a fine show.
It's fine.
It's fine. I don't think it's going to win any awards. It's not going to be on any Raspberry Awards either, right? It's not.
Yep.
It's not even bad enough to be that good bad. You know how you watch some things just because they're so bad, it's fun? It's not like that. It's just a legal show. There's, lawyers. They're doing their stuff. They're getting things done. And I get to the end of an episode and I'm like, well, there you go. That happened. And I didn't feel challenged. I didn't feel like I was, like we were saying, anything was too jarring for me. I understood it all. It wasn't too complex. And I felt really good at the end. I felt I can have a good sleep now. I feel like there might be somebody out there who is only watching this golden age of TV. And I'll tell you, watching Succession and Mad Men and Sopranos and Breaking Bad, it's challenging.
Yeah, it's too much. It's overwhelming. And that's like going to restaurants. Like sometimes I just want a bowl of soup and whatever's closest is the best thing. And, it just needs to be fine. It doesn't.
And you're full and you're fine after, right?
It doesn't need to be notable or spectacular. It just needs to be pretty good.
Yeah. And I think this would also help everyone, every once in a while when you do decide to, indulge in some really great meal, you'll go, oh, okay, that's why this is such a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the stuff that I like, people would describe it as mediocre.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like some of my things, I've got some real basic AF interests sometimes. I love to eat at Earl's.
Yeah.
That's real basic. I also enjoy a Boston pizza sometimes.
Yeah.
Again, super
there we
basic.
go. Yeah. So is that what I'm describing? I'm just describing myself as a basic person? Is that all I've done?
No, I think you're just making a case for basic is fine. And basic, you shouldn't apologize for basic or feel less than for basic. all of us need to have our basic days, because like if everything is exceptional all the time, then nothing is exceptional. We know that. Like you're just making a good case for like the norm core of humanity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think that with like the internet and having your phone all the time, like in the last decade or so, we have gotten used to just trying to optimize every experience. Like, I want to read all the reviews of this book before I buy it to make sure it's like something I'm going to love and it's a, book that's highly regarded. Or like we do it for every single thing in our lives. Like if you want to buy towels, you spend like all this time researching the best towels or whatever. And it becomes I find that it's become exhausting because it's my default now for like anything I want to go out and do. I have to like look into it and see like what is the thing that people like the most or what gets the best reviews or whatever. And there's some freedom into just not knowing and in just like doing whatever's closest or easiest or, the most comfortable situation and not worrying about any of that.
I don't know if this is like exactly the same thing, but I was just thinking about this. Like, those people who like crowdsource opinions about every decision they make?
Yes.
That feel like that to me, like that's like kind of like that feels like a slightly similar vein to what you're talking about. And I know it's not like quite the same, but like I hate that. It's fine to like make a decision on your own. Like we don't need 1,000 levels of input into like where we're gonna get like, I don't know. I'm trying to think like a good chair for your home. Like, like or just like what you should do to your bangs. Like
Isn't that really what we're doing too? Like when I am looking for a book, I'll look at Goodreads. I'm like, what do I care about Leah in Dallas, Texas, and what she thinks of this book I'm about to read?
Exactly.
But suddenly I put like a lot. Well, Leah gave it 4 stars, but Gary here in Thunder Bay, he didn't think it was quite as good. Like, why am I doing that?
It's also weird because like I won't leave reviews for most things because I'm like, why am I going to waste my time? I don't have time to review everything that I participate in, or consume or enjoy and et cetera, even though like I've tried to be better about rating and reviewing things that like I'm asking people to rate and review because I don't want to be a full-on hypocrite, but I am sometimes. Like I try to like rate and review podcasts when I listen to them. I try to like I don't like it when you can't just rate something and you have to write something as well, because I'm like I'm not here for like writing epics about why I read this book. I want to give it 5 stars and move on,
Mm-hmm.
That should be an indicator. But I know that I depend on those kinds of things too for like the different things that I make. So I don't know. You know what? Maybe we're just like a little bit, all, as they say, too online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine like freeing yourself from knowing anything about anything before you just set out for your day.
Honestly, it sounds so terrifying. It sounds like flying without a net, though, really, doesn't it? Like you're just out there, and you feel like if you were to tell somebody that you just bought a book, and they'd be like, "Oh, what are the reviews?" and you said, "I don't know." Like, what kind of world is that?
I mean, it's a fun world sometimes.
Yeah.
I like it. Like I do that. And I am historically underprepared for specific things, but often other people in my life are overprepared. So that sort of balances it out. I think of it as like when I get instructions for things that I'm like, I like to just wing it.
Yeah.
More
I'm a
wing.
terrible
In
person
praise
who likes to wing it.
Winging it more. Here's
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Maybe this is a summer vibe too that we have.
That's
like
true,
because
yeah.
we're all sitting inside. It's really hot today.
Mm-hmm.
None of us can have air conditioning because the microphones pick it up. Like maybe we're having like a little tiny bit of like indoor fever.
It could be that. Like my brain has like gone onto a different setting right now where it just can't like work very hard. You mean?
Honestly, we picked the right time to do this show then, because your brain doesn't have to work very hard.
Oh, no.
At all in season 2. And I'm not going to say, like, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, but there's also the part of me that's just like, if I shrug any harder, will I have shoulders? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
I don't know.
And you know what's great about the show is the title is a perfect segue no matter what else you're talking about.
It really is. It really is. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And, of course, we're talking about And Just Like That.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming.
Here we are. Here we are. We're only talking about the first 2 episodes of season 2. I will say that oftentimes I know that we over prepare our sort of outlines so we don't miss any talking points. This is not one of those times. Like, yes, I've got a lot of stuff in here, but like normally our like background and synopsis is like, well, you guys listen, you know, it's like us reading for like 14 minutes. Today, like 4 lines.
Yeah, there's.
I mean,
don't even feel bad about it.
No.
I think everybody who has watched even one single episode of Sex and the City kind of just gets the gist of it.
You're right. And that actually is maybe a strength of what Sex and the City was about. I think that if you came into it just like that without ever having watched Sex and the City, you might have some questions.
I can't even imagine anything like that. Do you think there's actually people who are just watching this?
There's always someone who is coming to it fresh and they're like, yeah, I'll watch this now. And then I guess like, oh, it's Kim from something else. Oh, okay, cool. I'll just like, because like there's tons of folks obviously who didn't watch Sex and the City at all, but like maybe they're at a different time in their lives right now where they're just like, yeah, I've heard this show is allegedly about women in their mid-50s having relationships in New York and being fancy. And that sounds cool. And then they turn this on and they're just like, what?
Nobody can see your face, but it's a good one.
Yeah. What is this? What?
Why would I care about these people at all?
Anyway, all this to say, I don't hate it. Don't love it.
It's right there in the middle then.
Yeah, probably at some point. But like it's very this is like perfect, honestly, perfect setup, Lisa. Yeah. You lifted it up and honestly spiked it yourself because this whole episode.
This is going to be one of these episodes where we don't really take a firm stance. And when we get to Does It Pop, it'll be all wet noodles from all of us.
It'll be like, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
No.
Oh, boy. Well, all right. If you want to just, I guess, skip to the end now. We've already sort of... I feel like we do have some pointed things to say, though, and a few things to celebrate. Lisa, would you like to read the background?
Sure. And Just Like That, Season 2, a sequel series to Sex and the City, premiered on June 22nd, 2023. Despite many negative reviews of Season 1, the second season has generally received more favorable reviews so far and continues where Season 1 left off, with Sarah Jessica Parker, Kristen Davis, and Cynthia Nixon reprising their roles. Kim Cattrall, who chose not to return for Season 1, will reportedly appear in a small scene in the finale of Season 2. We're also skipping the fact that Aiden's coming back, but we can talk about that later too.
Well, it's because I only watched the first 2 episodes, so I was like,
he hasn't been.
Whatever.
I'm caught up.
Okay,
he hasn't come back yet.
But
Great.
Sidebar, has anyone watched Kim Cattrall's new show, Glamorous?
I haven't, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, I saw the first couple of episodes, and it seems better than And Just Like That. I mean, that's not saying a lot. I want to watch more of it before I figure out whether, I think it's a good show or not. But it's
How's she in it?
She's great. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's so interesting to watch it in the context of her not appearing on this show because, like, they're trying to do all of these things on Glamorous that I think were, like, kind of critiques of season 1 and just like that, like of things
intriguing.
Yeah, cringy things that happened on that show in season 1. So, yeah, it's very interesting to watch it in the context of everything that's happening.
And let's also note that Glamorous came out also on June 22nd, 2023.
That's
just for fun.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes.
AG, do you want to read the synopsis?
Sure. Season 2 picks up with Carrie sleeping with her podcast producer, Miranda in LA with Che, Charlotte dealing with her kids, Naya's marriage imploding, Lisa's mother-in-law visiting, and Seema's relationships being tested.
Yeah, that's all I got. Sorry. I know it's not the most, but honestly, that
sums
does
it up.
tell us.
Yeah.
That sums it up very, very well. That's where we are.
So did you guys finish season 1?
Yes.
No. Okay. I stopped after what did we have to do? 2 episodes to...
Yeah.
Yeah. I just couldn't continue.
So, well, okay. This is fascinating to me. So I thought that there were only 7 episodes in season 1. And so I thought I only had 1 episode left last night. Then I was going to watch these other 2. I powered through 5 episodes of this show last night.
So 3 from the other season and 2?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, that was harder than I thought it would be. 'Cause 1, I got so many other deadlines, it was killing me. But 2, I kind of found myself being sucked in a little bit, like, 'cause I thought they ended the last couple of episodes in season 1. They're kind of finally maybe starting to get somewhere, but it's still not great. But it's sort of like a little bit messy in a fun way still, that like, okay, fine. And then to get into season 2, which I do think starts off like stronger, and really loved having like that Met episode to like start us off and like get us thinking about fashion and fun and sex again, I like that it begins where almost everyone's like in different stages of like fornicating and enjoying themselves, and like we have like different degrees of obviously intimacy coordinators on set, but like the way that we watch this show, I think for me has changed substantially from like when it was on in the 90s. I was watching it and thinking like, I like nudity, I guess. But like all I could think, and I was grateful to see like different bodies, and especially on Sex and the City, to finally see a body like Che's, which we've never seen on that show in any sense other than to make fun of it. Whereas Che's body gets to be, well, for the most part, like celebrated and adored, and, their body gets to be hot. Like they get to be depicted as being, a sexual person as well. And that like their body is, viewed in that lens. So I was grateful for that, but I was also just like the whole time I was thinking like, oh God, like, I hope everyone felt comfortable on set. I hope they had intimacy coordinators. Like I was thinking about so many other levels of things that I just never would have thought about like 5 years ago.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Is this worth it for us as an audience? I guess as long as like all of the stars had the ability to say no if they wanted, then it's fine. Because I think like Cynthia Nixon and Kristen Davis have been comfortable with nudity. And I also think it is good to see like the bodies of people in their mid-50s in these like different scenes as well, like because we don't see that very often either. But anyway.
Also putting a strap on we don't often see on TV either.
No, we should see way more of it. Like the last time, well, I mean, maybe I just don't watch enough like television that features strap-ons, which I could look into. But I feel like one of the last major shows that we saw like a strap-on feature prominently, but again was kind of in like this jokey way, was like Broad City when Abby was doing like her pegging episode. And I mean, great episode, but like it's so often depicted either through the lens of like, well, I guess all the characters are queer that were like involved in these various like strap-on episodes, but it feels often like there's like just this like extra edge of jokiness and comedy, and fine, that like it definitely can be funny. I'm not saying it can't be funny, but I would just love to see it taken like a tiny bit more as like legitimate sexual pleasure instead of like it being just this background joke for so long and then it coming off entirely and them never using it. You know what I mean? Like there's not as much payoff there.
They did do that on Sex and the City with Samantha, remember? When she was dating Sonia Braga? And she buys her a strap on and she throws her back out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we've been down there. We just never saw it.
Yeah. And I don't think we saw it to like the same extent.
No,
here.
we sure did not.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, so sorry. I went off on my own tangent and I apologize. I want to just come back to AG for a second because like, so did you kind of know where we were at like when we started?
No, it was just like, little helicopter landing at the beginning of season 2 and just thinking like there are a few things like, like, oh, like Miranda is with Che now. They're in LA. I sort of had to work that out backwards. And then, but I mean, it's not hard. And the story, I found it pretty easy to just skip episodes 3 through, so how many are in there? 10 in season 1 and just do a soft landing on season 1. It's not too disorienting. It's fine. And I think you will be able to bypass all of the rage I've heard Lisa talking about watching those episodes. So do yourself a favor. You can just float into season 2.
Yeah, I have to say one big thing, like honestly, and I feel like I'm probably going to speak for a lot of people. I'm truly surprised there was a season 2. I've got to say, because I hate watched every one of those episodes. No, I won't say the first one because you gave it some room to be something. Maybe episode 2, I gave it a little bit more room, and then I very, very concertedly watched those last the 8 episodes.
But that's the thing; you still watched it.
I did.
I know. I guess they click. That's what they care about, right?
Yeah. No, I know that. Obviously, but I was so sure that it was a failure because of that. That all I kept reading was people hate watching it, and I kept doing it. And I thought, surely that does not give you enough fuel for a second season. Obviously, you're correct. I was wrong, and all those clicks were clicks, right?
Well, that's the thing. They don't measure. I mean, I guess they're measuring rewatches, but they're actually just measuring like watches in general. And it had enough like.
Can you imagine if you could like click on whether you're hate watching it or like watching it?
But that's like all press is good press, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I guess so.
There was so much ink spilled for this show in season 1, and so much stuff like became topics of conversation, and then even. And I think people have like a little bit gone back, rewatched it, having watched it the first time. I'm not saying this is what I've done because I only just finished it last night, but like kind of reevaluated it with these recalibrated expectations and are just like, it wasn't as bad. I'm like, no,
it was
friends. Yeah. Like it's not good. Like,
well,
but I kind of did. I know I can't even. I kind of enjoyed. So we don't want to talk about like the end of last season, but I just think like there's this one kind of episode where everyone comes together and they're like supposed to be painting a
social housing or something, right?
A women's shelter maybe or something to that effect. And everyone has their varying degrees of commitment to that. But like, I think one of the problems now is that like everyone's so wealthy.
I was just going to say that.
That it's meaningless.
Yeah, because as a person who hasn't been a Sex and the City fan, But like what I've observed is that women my age really had an attachment to the show because it was this like life that they kind of fantasized about career women in New York living this cool and fabulous life. And they sort of, you could sort of relate to those characters. But now when you watch and just like that, they're just these super rich people that you can't relate to at all.
No.
Like all the characters on the show.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge shift.
And I feel like they're trying to comment on it within the show with like in various ways. Like honestly, Lily's song,
Yeah.
I get a little cringy, but I loved it actually on a lot of levels because just like her sort of like trying to interrogate this like wild world of privilege that she's grown up in and how still she finds it so oppressive and that she can't be herself and that she has to be like so so exceptional and such a good one as it were. And I was like, I mean, I guess I'm Team Lily if I have to choose a character. You know what I mean? Like it's just Lily and Rock are like the only are they the only two people I care about? Maybe I don't know.
I mean, like wow, how smart of her to sell her unnecessary wardrobe and buy her Nordwave. Like,
yeah,
very clever. Very clever.
It's extremely smart. And like, it's not that we can't enjoy the fantasy of all the clothes and stuff. But I just feel like Sex and the City originally at least was sort of like exploring class stuff a tiny, tiny bit. There's still obviously extremely privileged white women in New York who have tons of money for shoes and clothes and going out and blah, 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 blah. But like, they weren't all multimillionaires. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what we're getting from like most of them is that they are all multimillionaires. And that's so weird. Like that, what is that world?
Yeah,
there's no discussion of money at all. It's just more of a implied super wealth.
Yeah, because especially when Carrie takes down her podcast company because she won't read an ad on the air. And they lose a bunch of revenue and everybody loses their jobs. It's just kind of like
That's so Carrie, though. That's so Carrie. I have to say, so God's darn selfish.
But like, I mean, I do think like trying to like convince women that their vaginas are gross is like super disgusting. So like, oh my God, I can't even believe it. I'm Team Carrie on this one. But like the ways in which they like refute it, like they could have actually had a conversation about like her being like, I am not going to tell women their vaginas are disgusting. Instead, it's all about how she can't say the word vagina, even though she's a sex and relationship expert.
Yes.
So-called. Like, they want to try and make it about stuff, and then they have zero follow through, and they make it about something else entirely. And it's such a waste of like where they could be just a little smarter about stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we were supposed to take away from that. Like you said, you feel Team Carrie on the sense that she didn't want people to think that vaginas are bad, but then it was very Carrie to be so prudish and judgy, which was she always was on the original series.
Totally.
But also really kind of, oblivious to all these people packing up and like leaving the office. And I mean, okay, she doesn't have to read what she doesn't want to read if she disagrees.
Yeah,
with
and obviously it's not like one ad that's gonna like they sold the podcast company. That's all.
But there's some kind of realization when you're watching it, like that it doesn't matter to her if she does this podcast or not. Like she doesn't need to work. She doesn't need a job. She's just kind of
she's got an annoying book to flog.
Doing whatever. Yeah.
She and it's difficult to like be interested in characters who don't need anything, aren't going for anything, have like no challenges.
Yeah.
Like not all of the characters. Like obviously that's not all of the characters because I think there are some like interesting things happening in different storylines. But like Carrie's like she's got an incredibly hot man who wants to take their relationship to the next level.
And she's not interested.
Wow. It's so tough to be Carrie.
Yeah, right?
You know, like, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know. But
she
also, again, very Carrie. Whoever's writing it really is sticking to those.
And she can just like pull out her Vivienne Westwood wedding dress as a backup for the Met Gala at the last second.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't find that relatable? Really? Oh. Wow, that really actually spoke to me quite sincerely. And I did see, though, like some Easter egg kind of things, that there was an episode on the original Sex and the City where Big gives her a bird purse and she hates it. And now this one, you see her with that weird pigeon purse.
Oh, really? I was wondering about that.
I mean, I really loved the fact that we got to sort of live in this weird world of Met Gala preparation. And like, I loved the visual of Lisa walking in her dress and her husband trying to hold up her train. Like, what a beautiful shot. Like, that's a gorgeous shot. But like,
it was super fascinating to think about this kind of second tier of just uber rich people who aren't celebrities, that have to,
who don't get to go up the nice stairs.
Yeah, don't get to go in the front door.
And imagine they're going to be sitting with you at Rihanna. No, you're not. No, that is not going to happen. But I also thought it was quite cruel to do that to Anthony. I didn't see the joke there.
I didn't like it either. I mean, I know Anthony's kind of a pain, but like, I didn't like it either. It felt wrong.
Yeah, and I thought people just would have been like, no, we made a commitment to you. You're going to the Met Gala. So I wasn't particularly laughing at that. I found that a really weak storyline.
Super weak.
Yeah.
And also just the idea that even that like Harry would want to go to anything like that. Like,
no, exactly.
It's Harry.
Yeah.
Harry doesn't want to go.
No, that's why we love Harry.
Yeah.
And I guess we're completely Steve will never return. Like he's just gone for good.
I mean, I doubt he's gone for good because it's Steve. Like maybe Aiden will come back and Steve and Aiden maybe still have the bar. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know what Steve does for a living.
Steve doesn't have anything. Steve is just gonna love Miranda until he dies.
Miranda!
Watching TV, sitting on one hearing aid. Steve. Like I did.
Sorry, there's a person on TikTok that does these montages and just says Miranda, and just in all these different poses, Miranda, and it's perfect.
It's such a wild decision. That is the one thing I would say, AG, if you want to see how they deal with the Steve and Miranda of it all. I mean, I would on some level skip actually the episode where she leaves him and go to the other episode where this poor man who is heartbroken, and it's fine. Like obviously Miranda's allowed to fall in love with other people, and I think she told him in a really like good way, and I think that they obviously were on very different pages and things happen, but like he has to say to Carrie, how long have you known? Because he knows that Carrie was on Che's podcast, so he has obviously put two and two together and understands this, and he kind of confronts Carrie a little bit, but in a gentle way, and he's very honest about how he's not upset. He's just trying to understand and get more information because he doesn't have that much information. And then it becomes about how Carrie accidentally drops Big's wedding ring down a sink. And Steve, who is freshly heartbroken and has said that he is going to wait for Miranda forever because nothing else really... I mean, whatever. We know Steve can get some because he's done it in the past. He's fine. But like his whole scene for like the last scene for the season 1, if he doesn't come back for season 2, is taking apart a pipe to fish Carrie's dead husband's wedding ring out of the sink while she talks about how much she like misses Big and how she can't lose this ring, and it's wild.
Okay.
I've blocked all of it out. I watched it all, but I've forgotten it all. I don't even know how long ago it was. Was it 2 years ago now? I feel like it was.
Nobody remembers.
Nobody remembers. We've all blocked it out.
At that point, I think it had been, it was a year because she was about to go and do the Ashes. It was before she did the Ashes.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway. I just like,
But so what happened with the Ashes?
Oh, she just goes to Paris and dumps him. And then she texts Samantha and says she's in Paris. And does she want to meet for a drink? And Samantha texts back, yes. Or something.
Yeah. That was our Samantha, but it wasn't real.
Yeah. It sure was not.
No.
Lisa sent me this very funny clip of, I think, Kim Cattrall on The View. And they're talking to her about coming back to Sex and the City. And basically she does this like amazing face when she kind of like implies that she just like asked for this crazy amount of money and they ponied up, and it's honestly so good. It's like one of my favorite things I've seen because it's everything that we talked about. She confirms in this like short clip on The View, and it's perfection. And yeah, I love it so much. Oh God. I'm just so glad that she got her payday. And I know she has said that she's not going to come back for season 3 if there is a season 3. And I actually think there is a season 3, friends. I know they haven't like announced it yet.
Really?
But
Wow.
when I was Googling looking for something that I can't remember what I was looking for. Somewhere in Google, it listed like 3 seasons of And Just Like That. So I think that there's a chance it's getting a 3rd season.
Wow, I do that terrible thing now where as soon as I finish the new episode, I listen to the Vanity Fair podcast that they go straight, they record right after they watch. Uh-huh. And their 3 critics there have been very positive about this season. And like saying the kind of magic is back from what we liked before. And so if the powers that be are listening to anything and the ratings are up, I guess season 3 could be inevitable.
Well, that's the thing. Like I was looking through the critiques because in some cases, people have been like, season 2 is an insult to the memory of Sex and the City. And in other cases, people have been like, yeah, magic's back. We're in. Like, thank God. They had the awkward season 1, but now they're finally doing it. And I struggle to say that, but there's one, there's this Paste review that, Paste magazine review that it's very long, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it talks about how, like, the show, like, season one of And Just Like That just was, like, not able to figure out its identity. Like, it didn't want to be Sex and the City, but it also didn't want to be, like, not Sex and the City, because it seemed to sort of feel indebted. And, like, it's also, the long plot is, like, dealing with grief. Like, it's supposed to be, like, kind of a comedy dramedy kind of thing, not just pure, like, drama dramedy. And the writer was like, well, finally, like, we figured out that season 1 of And Just Like That, like, they called it a glorious unbridled mess, deliriously daft, yet also campy in the way things used to be camp before straight people discovered the aesthetic. And it just didn't work. But it was also damn watchable. And I don't know if I, like, fully agree that it was, like, watchable, but, like, that's fine, whatever. But where the writer arrives is that their opinion of, they only do the first 2 episodes as well, actually. So that's why I think it's kind of the most interesting sort of write-up for our purposes. They say, well, viewers can rest assured it's better than the first. The actors are more committed, the storylines and relationships are more grounded without sacrificing their liveliness, and the show's self-awareness is more apparent and enjoyable than before. Now, that's pretty measured enthusiasm.
Yes, I would say
but
that.
But I will say it is better than season 1.
Yeah, it's more like, is it a good show, or are we just comparing it to season 1? You know, like, would season 2 be okay if it was on its own? Or are we just giving it
That's
some, extra credit because of it.
That's an interesting point for sure. This is one of those weird times where I'm actually like, because I feel like it's so uneven. It's like a real episode by episode kind of journey. And then you take the totality of it at the end. Because like the first 2 episodes last year or earlier this year when we watched it, I was like, or I don't know, whenever we watched it, God, I can't even remember. Was it last year, this year? Anyway, whatever. Not a big deal. I was like, well, I'm glad they're back and we can wash the gross taste out of our mouths of the Sex and the City 2, the movie, which was such a horrific place to end things on. Like, I will say, and Just Like That at least is better than Sex and the City 2, the movie.
Interesting. So, like
Sex and the City 2, the movie is like basically like just a long string of hate crimes.
So now we're establishing a ranking of all the Sex and the City.
It's like it exists in a world properties. All of its own. We only compare it to itself.
Yeah.
We don't actually put it out into the harsh light of day. We just give it its own sort of.
It can't stand up to the scrutiny because this is the other thing about, which was so frustrating about watching like season 1. They were constantly just like, it felt so awkward that they're all so obsessed with being canceled. They're not being like quote unquote woke enough, and like on and on and on. And it's like that's the conversation of people who know that they absolutely participate in culture in a way that should get them canceled. And they don't want to do the work of being better people, or at least like slightly more inclusive people. And it's such a boring way to go about making comedy dramedy stuff. Like, it's just, I don't want to have these like just painful ick factors of discussions. I don't want to watch like more stuff that centers like the weird feelings of white women and sacrificing the feelings of like Black characters and non-binary characters and like, people of color. Like, if you're going to expand the world of Sex and the City and Just Like That, do it better.
You know what? Here's the thing too. I go back and watch old Sex and the City all the time. I'll get sort of an itch to watch the one where it's almost like I'm describing a Friends episode, like the one where Miranda or they're in LA or they go on the train or whatever. I go back to them all the time. And on that Vanity Fair podcast, they actually did their top 5 episodes. And, controversial, obviously, because everyone has their own. But it was like, oh, yeah, those were really great episodes. There's 100% chance that I will never go back and watch the first season. Not a single episode of And Just Like That. Like, I have no burning desire to see any of it. In fact, I'm kind of trying to forget it in a weird way.
Well, it's interesting how this kind of like ties into what we were talking about at the beginning, because I feel like about mediocrity. And because I feel like season 1, it was so cringy, and like I just like there's so many things that I just was put off by. And then like season 2 is just like, it's fine. It's okay so far.
So far, it's been fine.
I don't need it to be amazing. I mean, it'll do.
It'll do.
I'd
Exactly.
like to spend more time with Naya and Seema and Lisa. I'd like to see these characters, be more a part of like a larger group. Like, we're starting to see like Charlotte and Lisa and Anthony have dinner together. Great. But we've got like Naya having a really like legitimate sort of personal crisis, and Miranda is just so like caught up in like beach cleanup that she can't even pay attention to her friend who's like obviously like kind of losing it,
spiraling,
like just spiraling hard. And like, is Miranda now as self-involved as Carrie? I think maybe like this is, but I mean, often the arguments for this in this show, not arguments, but like often what they show us in this world is that, which is wild to me, is that the expectation on some level is that when these women get involved in relationships with sexual partners, they are expected to neglect their friendships to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And those friends are expected to be fine with it because that's what we do. We're supposed to like, but in the long run, we know that the real love is between the friends, that the sexual partners are somewhat interchangeable and move in and out. And that's a very messy and incomplete thesis. Like, I wish that, and I'm going to blame Michael Patrick King entirely, is that Sex and the City got to say that it was about friendship because it was just the core four, and they got to reinforce that theme to us all the time. Now that we've seen the core four implode, and we know that friendship is actually, like, can be undone by, like, terrible things going on behind the scenes and, you know, disputes, like they haven't recommitted to friendship in a meaningful way. And that's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Can I just say, though, that I haven't had as big a laugh as I hope it. Okay, I'm caught up. So I've watched the third episode, but I feel like it was when Naya was on the phone with her husband and Hat Girl, where she kept yelling about Hat Girl. Honestly, that made me laugh so hard. Who the hell is Hat Girl? Because I was thinking that. I was thinking, oh my God, what a cliche Hat Girl is.
Such a cliche.
Right?
Hat Girl with her guitar.
With her
and the
guitar.
like.
Oh, I was just like mortified. And then to find out he was like, nothing's happened yet. And you're like, oh, you're so lying.
I can't, just even adding the word yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hat Girl is making her way in.
Also, just this idea that Naya, an incredibly accomplished, cool person who has been, I think, like pretty clear from what I remember about like, they weren't getting pregnant. They did the IVF and she was done. She was like, you know what? This isn't meant to be and this isn't what I want anymore. And like, and it's fine for him to still want that. I think that's actually like a good thing for people to have to face and just like, okay, we want different things. And as much as we love each other, we might have to move on. But for him to be like, in the same breath, basically say, well, nothing's happened yet.
Yeah.
But also, I know how to solve all this. Let's get a surrogate.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Burn those guitars, man.
Yeah,
go for
exactly.
it, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Like, that's
maybe Hat Girl can be it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, oh boy. Mm-hmm. Tough to swallow.
Very tough. I agree.
I also feel like, and we know this because like Che became this like sort of memeable character that everyone was just like, my God, you stuffed everything you could into this one character to like, this is what somebody in the writer's room really thinks of as like a progressive, you know, super contemporary, non-binary person of color, sexually fluid, you know, like just they've got everything going on. Mm-hmm. And a comedian to boot. So all that said, I really love Sarah Ramirez, the actor that plays Che, and I don't mind Che. I really still am having a hard time with the way they're writing Miranda. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe even the way, and I can't even believe I'm saying this because I love Cynthia Nixon, but I think I'm having a hard time with the way Cynthia Nixon's playing Miranda too. She's
playing her. I mean, I think that I don't know where we're going to go with our characters in this. Well, I do know because I know a little bit more from episode 3. So, but everyone seems to be on
the future.
Yeah, everyone seems to be on a little bit of a crash course to something.
Yeah,
in this season. Like all that sort of building things up and like what was gonna, you know, like that question of, is this really what you want? Like you went along a certain direction and thought, no, this isn't what I want. I want this. And now everyone's going to go, oh, is this what I really want? And I think that's what we're going to see even with Charlotte. Like she had spent her life that the most important thing she could do was become a wife and mother. That's what she established in the series. It's what she established in the movies. And I think now we're going to see her have this reckoning, like maybe like with the song, with, that song that was quite a song. And so I think everyone's going to have this moment where they're questioning who they are. And I think that's what's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I feel like the most interesting, like one of the other most interesting things that we've seen is that little bit of tension between Lisa and her husband when he's like, well, I can just write you a check. I'm sorry, but I believe that's their money together. They are married.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I know that that's what she's calling him on in that moment. And so I'm interested to see like how things progress there. I'm interested in like the sort of respectability politics stuff of his mom. And like, I think that there's some interesting things happening. So I want to spend more time with these characters. And I love that like Seema absolutely knew that like inevitably Zed was going to ask her for money. Like she called that. She called it really, really well. And I would love for that character to have like, I kind of feel like it continues to be about how she's never been married. And I understand that like they've tied that to sort of like parental expectations to a certain extent and maybe some cultural expectations. But like she just doesn't, and it's fine for her to want to be married at some point and to like have a longer relationship. But like we just like, I feel like her being able to really call it with this guy Zed and meeting the ex-wife that still lives with him and her clocking that he tells Victoire to pick up the check. Like all of these things are the most we've ever really gotten to know about this character. Yeah. And I want more because I feel like, in season 1, they were content with just being like, all right, here's a slightly different Samantha. And
did you recognize her lover from Emily in Paris?
I never watched Emily in Paris.
Oh, well, there's an ordinary show that I watched all the way through, both seasons.
There's only 2? I feel like, oh, wow. I thought it
I think 3's coming out soon.
Oh, okay.
Of course it is.
Sense.
Yeah, and I'll be here for it. So just in case you...
And then wondering why there's going to be a season 4. And it's because you keep watching it.
Because I keep doing it. I know.
I will say, like, one of the reviews I just want to like touch on before we have to like, end our episode. Them magazine was quite enthusiastic about season 2, and I kind of like the summary that they have offered. So, quote, but in the second season, like an adult who finally realizes that she did in fact become her mother, the show acquiesces to the inevitable and is better for it. No moment better encapsulates this attitude than when Carrie, distraught after her planned Met Ball look doesn't pan out, puts on the only outfit in her closet that fits the, quote, veiled beauty theme, her Vivienne Westwood wedding dress from the first film, complete with the bird feather adorning her head. As she slips into it, she beams, and so too did I. Part of growing up is admitting the mistakes of your past and seeing how they can be your assets rather than your burdens. As Carrie floated on a puffy white cloud into the Manhattan streets, I finally got the sense that she and the show had matured.
Oh, that's really great.
That's a very hopeful glimpse
Yeah.
at season 2.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just thinking about all of that silk taffeta on the sidewalks of New York.
Touching the ground?
Yeah. And
Yes.
and shedding a tiny tear.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I think what's her brownstones at something like 79th, so she's just walking like across the street. Like she's not going too far, but you're right. Yeah. I get it.
So, do we recommend season 2 of Ain't Just Like That?
If you watch the series, if you watch the movies, and if you watch season 1, I will give it a pop.
Yeah, like for me, I think if you're a fan of the franchise, then sure, give it a try. I don't know that I'll watch it all right away. I might wait till it's done and then like do a binge watch with my cousin, because that's sort of how we got through most of season 1, and that was actually like more fun. Because I don't know that this show stands up to a week by week scrutiny. I think you need it all at once in order to see, because like individually, it's really back and forth. The sum of its parts might be greater.
I hate to tell you this, but as soon as we finish up here, I'm going to watch episode 4.
It's a partial pop from me. I'll give it that.
Yeah. I'm giving it a partial pop as well. I remember giving season 1 0 pops. And
yeah, that's fair.
And telling people that you can just skip it and go straight to season 2 and have a nice, okay watching experience.
Right? A middling experience. There we go.
It's fine.
Enjoy that. Yeah, it's fine.
You've heard it here first. It's fine. Go ahead. We love to leave our episodes on something we heartily recommend. Lisa, do you want to go first?
Sure. So this book was recommended to me, and I am having a jolly good time reading it. It is called When Women Were Dragons, and it's by a writer named Kelly Barnhill. And unlike most of the times I buy books, I had to buy it in the fantasy section, which is a place I don't often go. But the premise is, in the year 1955, suddenly a great dragoning takes place where all of these women, 600,000 of them, suddenly turn into dragons. And it's about what happens to America after that, what happens to relations between men and women, between men and women and children, and it is just great. One of the reviews says fierce, feminist, and funny, and I have to say that that sums it up. So, When Women Were Dragons.
That sounds good.
Cool. Thank you. AG, what about you?
Okay, so I finally started watching season 5 of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, final season, and I recommend it. It is,
cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, from like everything I've read, it's like a really strong ending to the series. The first few episodes that I've watched so far are excellent. They're really well done, and it kind of like does things a little bit differently. Like they do kind of flash forwards to the future, so you can see, you know, what becomes of Midge in the future and what becomes of Susie. And it's like really built around Midge and Susie's friendship. And
good.
Yeah, it's, I think they're doing it justice with this final season.
Good. If I bowed out after season 2, do I need to watch 3 and 4 if I wanted to dig into 5?
Yeah, I would recommend continuing to watch it, but just so you know, like, the story of how they got to where they are. But
all right, fine, fair enough.
But
that'll be more commitment than I can handle right now, but in the future.
Yes,
in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I am going to recommend a new podcast from our dear friend Hannah McGregor and her Witch Please Productions. They have got this new podcast called Gender Playground, and it is a new show co-hosted by Maisel and her longtime friend Rami Marks about gender-affirming care for kids.
Oh.
And this is a topic that's like near and dear to my heart, near and dear to the hearts of so many people, and crucial and important at this moment in time. So it's called Gender Playground from Witch Please Productions, from the whole team. And I'm really excited about it. And I want it to do really well.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Did it just launch?
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. Yay.
Excellent.
All right. We did it.
well,
we watched Sex and
we
the
did
City. Well, sort of. We watched something.
We watched And Just Like That.
Mm-hmm. And just like that, we're done.
Great work. You can hang out with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But, you know, I'm going to be honest, guys. We're not there that often.
But I find that who is? I find people
Great.
aren't
Honestly,
on socials anymore.
It's fine. We all know we're touching grass. That's what we're doing. But you could rate and review us 5 stars. That'd be cool.
And just to let everyone know that we we record a little bit before we release the episodes, and today Meta launched Threads. So I don't know if we're going to be on that platform at some point, but that's kind of an exciting proposition to get to leave Twitter entirely.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I mean, I feel like Twitter's going to leave us before we necessarily migrate anywhere else. But you know what? You can find us in your podcast.
Yes, you can.
Listening devices.
Yes, you never know where we'll show up. And thank you to Andrea Gin, our co-host and producer, who is never middling and never ordinary.
Thank you.
Yeah, no basics here.
None at all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.